Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Nice to see so many of you with us, both on Zoom and on YouTube. What a beautiful evening outside. Absolutely gorgeous again, isn't it? Who'd like to be flying? Yeah, I know. The idea of doing these webinars is so that when it comes to flying time again, we can at least get back in the skies and know a little bit more about the weather and what's going to go on. And that's the intention with these webinars, is to give you as much information as I possibly can about what I see as a forecaster when I'm looking at various different charts and how I go about looking at the weather when I'm planning my flying. Can everybody hear me okay? Give us a thumbs up if you can, because I know some of you got cameras on. Yep, superb. That's excellent. And you can type it in the chat window as well if you'd like to. Those of you who missed me a couple of minutes ago, you can type in chat windows. Click on more on your more box by either tapping on the tablet screen or the iPhone screen. You'll see more come up, and you've got an option in there for chat. Each device is slightly different, but click on chat and that will give you the text window. Fantastic. Great that you can all hear me well. That's brilliant. Okay, first up, what are we going to do today? Well, one of the things that I've noticed, and it's something I've picked up on over the years, is that forms 2-on-4 and 2-on-5 are somewhat neglected when it comes to us flying. Now, this is not a criticism of anybody. I think it's just that as technology has developed, forms 2-on-2, 2-on-4 and 2-on-5 have kind of slipped down the list a little bit. So I thought what I'd do is try and get them back into our consciousness, to get them back to where I think they should be, and give you reasons as to why I think they are so important and why we as pilots should be using them regularly. And I know that one of the reasons that they're not used is because they just look like this mishmash jumble of abbreviations that by the time you've managed to read through those, many of you just think, oh, well, I might as well just pick up my phone, check the app and see what the forecast is going to do. But there's so much information that's contained within 2-on-4 and 2-on-5 that I think that really we better get used to using it again, because it is such a fantastic resource when it comes to forecasting. So just before we kick off, many of you kindly filled in the few questions when you were registering for the webinar to tell me what you were flying, the number of hours you've been flying for, and where you were flying from. But of course, I think it'd be useful for everybody else to see that as well, so they can get a feel for who's on, what experience we've all got with flying, and where we're flying from. So first up, guys, could you, and girls, could you type in for me in the chat window what aircraft you're flying? That would be absolutely superb, and the amount of hours you've got under your belts as well. Superb. A whole range of aircraft there, and a whole range of experience as well. So I fly a Grob. That's what I'm learning at the moment from Halfpenny Green, and I've got what, 15 hours under my belt at the moment. So I'm just a little teeny weeny student pilot, just learning, having been involved in aviation meteorology for 30 years or so. So I'm probably one of the least experienced people on here when it comes to actually flying. But I like to think I know a little bit about weather. Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you for that. Now, second question that would be really good, and I've just had a message off John Firth asking me if I'm live on YouTube. Yeah, we're on YouTube as well, John. So if anybody you know wants to join in, I'm just going to type in the address that you need for YouTube if you want to pass it on to your friends, because I've had a few comments about that. That's what you need. Okay, that's the address to pass on to your friends. So youtube.com/weather school. What would be handy as well, so everybody else can get a feel of who's tuning in, who's watching, could you type in your home airfield for me as well? That would be great. Excellent. So a whole range of airfields here. Most of them UK based. I think all of them UK almost. I did see a few people who'd registered who were a couple in the States. We'd got a couple in Asia and a few South Africa as well. Most of those I'm seeing coming through at the moment are UK based. Okay, so most of you, and there was somebody in Portugal as well. We've got somebody in Spain too. So most of you will be familiar with this phrase then, forms 2 on 4, 2 on 5. And there we go, somebody in the USA as well. Most of you will be familiar with this phrase, forms 2 on 4 and 2 on 5. But wherever you are in the world, the majority of Met services issue similar significant weather charts. So this will apply majority to the UK, but it can apply to wherever you are in the world. And what 2 on 4 and 2 on 5 are short-term forecasts, usually for the day, for the evening ahead. That's what we're going to be looking at today. And they're introduced within our PPL, LAPL syllabuses and other licenses as kind of, here's a weather chart, this is what you're going to see, and this is the information that's on there. But it's not made clear exactly why they are so important and the information that's included within those charts. So this is what Form 215 looks like. Now, I did email out about half an hour to an hour ago these charts for you to print out and for you to be able to annotate yourselves as well. So hopefully you've got a copy of these. If you haven't got one yet, then I will just briefly, in fact, no, I can't. I'll have to do it for you afterwards. I'll send it to you afterwards, a link to this chart so that you can get it and you can download it. But hopefully most of you have got this. So this is Form 215. Now, I did see a question, somebody asking why they're called Forms 2 on 4, 2 on 5. Look, this will just go way back into the annals of meteorological history, and I'm guessing goes back to sort of Second World War. Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Fahim. Thank you for uploading those for me. That's wonderful. Thank you for doing that. This will go back to the annals of sort of Second World War time, when standard Met forms, and we called them Met forms, were issued. So actually it goes back in time as to why they are called what they are. So this is what we see as a basic Form 215. Now, of course, we've got glorious weather in the UK today. This is the satellite picture from this afternoon. So, I mean, you can see there glorious conditions during the course of today. Lots of sunshine around. We've got more cloud out towards the west, but you can see there that even that cloud is broken. Most of the UK has been in glorious conditions. So actually Form 215 today doesn't really show a great deal, but for our purposes, that's quite handy. I've got another one from the weekend to show you in a wee while, but this is actually useful because we're not seeing that much detail on these charts. And as you know, sometimes these can get very, very detailed indeed. There's enough abbreviations on there, even on a quiet day, let alone on a busy day. So let's start off with, where do we actually get them from? Well, they come from the Met Office, and this is one of the reasons why these charts are important. And I say this because the GA service that you see through the Met Office, the free GA service, is a funded service. So by using these forecasts, it's a case really of use or lose. By using them, it encourages the powers that be that are funding this service to be able to continue to fund it and continue to present us with these charts. So we log on to the free Met Office Aviation Briefing Service, and that's what we see once we've logged on. And we get Forms 2 on 4 and 2 on 5 from this section here. We go to briefing charts and we go to significant weather, low level and spot winds. And that's where we see them. So that's where these charts are contained. Now, the charts are updated 4 times a day. So a forecaster, the aviation forecaster at the Met Office, will update these charts, and he'll do it based on data that's coming from high resolution models and based on his or her experience as well. And these charts are then updated with their experience put into the charts. Now that's something crucial when we're considering forms 214 and 215, particularly actually related to form 215, which is the low level forecast chart. So that's that one. Because many of you will be looking at your mobile phones and you'll be looking at apps and looking at forecasts. Apps are kind of a bane of my life in a way, because what apps do is they present to you raw model data, and that's all you're looking at. You're looking at model data. It is just a model. It's based on equations that are input into a computer that throws out a forecast. So, for example, if you're looking at an app that asks for a postcode, you put your postcode in, you get a forecast. You're not actually getting a forecast for that postcode. You're getting a forecast for the nearest model point. Now, all models have weaknesses and have strengths, and it depends on what model is being used by the app as to what weaknesses and strengths are shown. So, for example, the GFS model, which is the one that is all over the internet because it's basically free for companies to download, strip out and use, is not great when it comes to low level cloud because it doesn't have that resolution in its lower layers. So this is why you may have seen at many sites that actually low level cloud is not depicted very well at all. You'll have seen this on an easterly very often, that low level cloud is not depicted very well at all. So this is why you have to be very, very, very careful when using apps. And really, in my book, apps should only ever be used for planning the weather 3, 4, 5, 6 days in advance. They shouldn't be used by pilots at all to decide if one should be flying today. That's how careful you have to be with them. They're pretty good for things like winds, but you have to be very, very careful. All they are is a guide, and I think you should be using them for days 3 onwards, no further. When it comes to shorter term, yes, it's great to see what the overall picture is from the app, but you certainly shouldn't be taking any decisions on flying when using those location-based apps. You know, if you're using an app such as Windy or something which is displaying the charts and you're looking at the charts, you're looking at where the rainfall is, fine. But if you're clicking on it and it's giving you some sort of tabulated breakdown of what the weather should be, you really shouldn't be flying on that information. Forms 214 and 215 are what you should be using to fly today, combined with things like TAFs, combined now with things like the Garmets. Those are the new forecasts that are on there. So 215 is a forecast that has had human intervention. It's had the benefit of the experience of the forecaster put into it. So 214, 215 are updated 4 times a day. And you can see on here, but they're grayed out because they then become older charts. And you normally find that a couple are available for the forecast time that we're interested in. So this morning, I downloaded the forecast chart for today. So this was a chart that I downloaded at about 7:30 this morning. And the first thing to do when you're looking at form 215 is to break it down into its constituent parts. So first up, and most obviously on the left-hand side here, we've got a map of the UK, and it's the weather chart. And this chart is valid, and this is what's very important. This chart is valid for a fixed time. So this chart is only valid for the time that is stated on the chart. So you can see what time the chart is forecast for because it tells us. So if we just have a look there in the top right-hand corner of the chart, you will see that it says fronts stroke zones valid at 1200 hours. So that tells us that that chart is valid for today at midday. that was the time that the chart was valid for. Now, any time before that or any time after that, that chart is not valid. Okay, so it is only valid for the time that is shown here on the chart. No other time. So it's important to realize that that is what that is doing. Now, the next section is the big box that you can see here. Okay, so that's the big box that you can see here. And you can break that down into 4 sections as well. So first up, we've got our areas, A, B, C, and D, and they correspond to the areas that are marked on the forecast chart here. So for example, top left-hand corner here, we've got A. Here we've got area B. Here we have area C, and there we have area D. So these areas correspond to the areas that we see on the map here. Now, this box, the data that is then contained within this box, so the next 3 columns, 1, 2, 3, is valid from 22, that's today, the 22nd, 0800 to 22, 1700, 0800 to 1700 Zulu today. Now, that means that this box is valid for that window of weather. So it's valid for that 9-hour window of weather. It's a forecast. This chart is valid for that fixed point in time. So it's valid for midday and only midday. So it's important to realize that. So what you should see is that the information that's included in here should tell you the story of what's included on the chart. Okay. So first up, what do? I glance down these columns and try and pick out things that are relevant. So weather that is relevant to the UK. Now, I know that you might say, well, I'm going to go fly from Blackbush, I'm going to go fly from Hackney Green, I'm going to go fly from wherever it may be. So why would I want to look at the weather in other areas? Well, the reason for that is quite simple. It gives us a broad overview of the weather. And if you saw my webinar a couple of weeks ago, I was going through charts and I showed you a chart that looked like this. This is the analysis chart for 6 o'clock this morning. And what I said to you was, look at the broad picture. So look at what the overall picture looks like. And you'll know if you've been to my weather school, my classroom-based weather school, my aviation weather school part 1 and part 2, I spend quite a bit of time on these charts and bring them alive. We make them into 3D charts because all the information you need about flying is actually contained on these charts. So immediately, I'm seeing on this one, we've got an easterly flow. So it's a polar continental flow. Immediately, I know that I should be aware of the risk of low cloud in the east. Western areas are always going to be better than the east. The isobars are quite close together, so I know it's going to be breezy. So it's that broad view of things that's really important. So taking the broader British Isles view, I'm kind of just scanning down this column here, which is surface visibility and weather. So it's stuff that's really going to affect me. And I'm just glancing down here, area A's got some fog. Look, it says FG there. That's fog. So FG means fog. Area B's got a bit of hill fog. Area C has got, well, generally nil weather, but in there it says it's got some hill fog. And it's also talking about this strange number here, 500 FPM. We'll come back to that in just a second. And then in area D, it's telling me we've got 25 kilometre visibility, but it tells me here, look, 7 kilometres in rain or showers and rain. Now, this is where learning and becoming familiar with these codes is important. So RA/SHRA, that's rain or showers of rain. So effectively, it's the similar code or the same code as you'll see in METARs and also in TAFs. So area C, look, it says here MTW max VSP 500 FPM at 040 TL 10Z. Let me break it down for you. That means that there is mountain wave activity with a maximum vertical speed of 500 feet per minute at 4,000 feet until 1000 Zulu. You might say to yourself, how on earth would I know that? Well, actually, things are made a bit easier. Go back to the Met Office Aviation Briefing Service, scroll down the page, and you'll see here at the bottom of the page, can you see there, it says Aviation Abbreviations, right down the bottom of the page. Click on that, and there you have a full list of abbreviations. So, for example, MTW, click on M, mountain waves. So you just go right down the bottom of the page at the Met Office site, and you'll find there that it tells us about mountain waves. So that's how we can get a decode, an understanding of what these abbreviations are. Now, also, there are these little marks in there. Look, can you see that one there, that little triangle? They're actually decoded on the chart itself. So here it says moderate/severe turbulence. So in area C, it says ISOL, and ISOL is isolated. And that mark there means moderate turbulence. So we know that in area C, which is the area here encompassed by this sort of scalloping, it's talking about 30 kilometer visibility. There could be some mountain wave activity, which basically means turbulence. And there'll be isolated moderate turbulence and isolated hill fog. Now, each of these areas are bounded by these scalloped marks. And usually what you find in these kind of scalloped areas is there'll be a marking about how fast each area is moving. So it says here, look, slow, slow, slow. So you're not going to see any change probably during the period when we're seeing slow marked on those areas. So I've now got this broad view. I mean, area A is not going to concern me, so let's not worry about that. It's so far away. Area B up here and round through Ireland and into northern parts of France, he's talking about 30 kilometer visibility, nothing to worry about, but some isolated hill fog. Now, remember that if there is any cloud around and the bases are below 3,000 feet, in those areas, it's going to be shrouding the hill. So you're always going to get hill fog. So that will always be marked on there. In area C, we've already said 30 kilometer visibility, some mountain waves, some isolated turbulence, could be some hill fog in there as well, because there may be some low cloud. And in area D, off towards the southwest here, not going to be that concerned, but it's telling me here there are a few showers coming in. Now in the third column, that's cloud. And this is where it's very handy for you to know your cloud types, because our cloud types are abbreviated here. Now, what's key about this, and this is where this beats apps hands down, is that the forecaster is predicting the cloud base and the cloud tops for you. So interpretation has been made of what the model is suggesting as to what cloud bases and tops are likely to be. And to be honest with you, the output from a model of what cloud bases and cloud tops are likely to be, particularly the bases, is pretty darn useless. So if you've got an app or you're looking at some website that's telling you what cloud bases are, it's nice of them to tell you, but treat it with a pinch of salt, because cloud bases are one of the most difficult things that you can predict. And that's where humans can do a much better job still than computers. So look at the cloud bases, and it says here in area A, isolated areas in the east. So this is areas in the east, scattered to broken stratus cloud. Now I know that you're probably thinking to yourself, what's stratus cloud? You're racking your brains to think, what is stratus cloud? I know that I should know what it is. Stratus is the flat base cloud that we see with very low bases. Generally, it's not that thick, but it's associated with fog. And it tells us underneath here that we've got a base of 002 to 005. So that's 200 feet to 500 feet. And the tops on there are at 1,000 feet. But the bases could be down to the surface, 000, in fog. So immediately I know that this area A, I know I said that I wasn't really interested in it, but that area A's got fog in it with cloud on the deck. Basically, we're not going to be doing much with that. Area B. This now talks of isolated, scattered to broken outer cumulus cloud. So that's a medium level cloud. And that has associated with it icing. That's that funny upturn symbol. And again, that's decoded for us here. So it says there, look, moderate / severe ice. So there is icing associated with that cloud. So those of you doing any IFR stuff, you're going to be in that. So you're talking icing, a base of 8,000 feet and tops XXX. That's not referring to the rating of this particular chart. It refers to the fact that the cloud top is above 10,000 feet, because this weather chart refers to areas below 10,000 feet. So it's saying there that we've got bits of scattered or broken outer cumulus with moderate icing, and also there we've got the turbulence symbol, so moderate turbulence, moderate icing and turbulence in that cloud to the base of 8,000 feet, top above 10,000 feet. And that's west of 9 degrees west, where we then have isolated scattered cumulus with a base of 3,000 feet to 4,500 feet with a top of 6,000 feet. So you're always getting the bases first, and then you're getting the tops. So the base comes first, then come the tops. So we spoke about stratus, outer cumulus cloud, and cumulus cloud. Now, if you're uncertain of your clouds, it just so happens I've got my book here, the Pocket Weather Forecaster. You can order that from the Weather School site, but I've basically gotten there pictures of clouds, the weather that they bring, and they are the clouds that every pilot needs to know. So it's all the basic stuff without the complicated stuff in there. So that is available for you to get from the Weather School shop. So all the way down here is explaining to us what the cloud is likely to be, its base, its tops, how active the cloud is. So if there's turbulence in there, if there's icing in there, that cloud is quite an active cloud. It's doing something. And just look at area C here, talking about isolated few or scattered cumulus with a 3,000 foot base, 3,000 to 4,500 foot base, and a 5,000 foot top. It talks of isolated, scattered, broken, stratus and stratoQ with some turbulence, moderate turbulence in there, with bases of 1,000 to 1,500 feet, tops of 2,000 to 3,000 feet on upslope. So an upslope is where the wind is blowing against. So if you've got a hill here and the wind is blowing against it, that's an upslope, and that's valid until 10 o'clock. So what it's saying there is that after 10 o'clock Zulu, that cloud was likely to be clearing. And in area D, it talks of widespread broken or overcast, strat Q, outer cumulus, outer stratus, just about thrown every cloud at us, with severe icing and severe turbulence, with bases of 5,000 feet to 7,000 feet and tops above 10,000 feet. So that's in that area just down here. So suddenly we get this whole overview of how things should look. And all of those areas, you'll notice, A and B talk of scattered to broken cloud. So that is going to give us, and handily the code is here, 3 to 7/8 of cloud up here. And in C, it talks of few to scattered. So that's talking of 1 to 4/8 of cloud, although early on there may have been some broken cloud, so probably 7/8, but that was likely to have cleared away. And then on the right hand side here, this final column is freezing level. So immediately we can see where that freezing level is likely to be. So up here, area A, 7 to 9,000 feet, 070, 090. So flight level 70 to flight level 90. Here in B, it's at 5,000 to 7,000 feet in the north, but 8,000 to above 10,000 feet in the south. So we've got a definite change in freezing level as you head south in area B. In area C, it's at a base of 8,000 to above 10,000 feet. So here we're at 8,000 feet or above for a freezing level. And in D, we're at 7,000 to 9,000 feet for our freezing level. good little trick you can do here is that if the skies are clear, then you can roughly work out your surface temperatures as well, because temperatures fall at 3 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet in the atmosphere. So they rise as you come down at 3 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet. So you can roughly work out surface temperature based on where your freezing levels are. If you've got saturated air, then the temperature will be falling at something like 2 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet, or rising at 2 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet. So you can make a very rough estimate as to where temperatures may be during the course of the day, given that 0 degree, that freezing level point. So 215 gives you that very good overview as to conditions for the day. Now, link that in with a forecast you may have seen a day or two before, perhaps on your app. Link it in with the forecast that you've seen on the TV the day before. Link that in then with something like TAFs, and you build up a picture as to what the weather is likely to do. And one of the things we do at Weather School is that we'll look at satellite pictures, we'll bring that into our decision making as well, and we'll look at the surface charts and bring that in too. And when combined with air masses, remember the air masses from your PPL, boy were they dry, excuse the pun, remember that from the PPL. I tell you what you need to know about air masses, and it's not that tricky, because air masses basically give us an idea of cloud bases and tops as well. But combine all that in and you get a good prediction of what's ahead. So when we're using form 215, we should look at that map, look at the chart and see what time it's valid for, so midday, and get an overview as to the number of breakdown of areas we've got. Do a scan of what problems weather-wise there may be for the pilot in each of those areas by looking at the viz and the weather. And then just do a quick scan down of the cloud. This is usually the one that people get more confused by, because there is so much detail in there. But just do a quick scan down of the cloud and look at the bases. Just look at what the bases are doing first. Let's not worry about the tops at the moment. Just look down at what the bases are. Get a feel for what the weather is doing, and then look at these freezing levels, because these are important. Most of us flying GA, if they're above 5,000 feet, we're not really going to be worrying too much about freezing levels. But if we're going higher than that, obviously at this time of year, freezing level can be sort of 8 to 12,000 feet. So that starts to become more relevant. So it's that overall scan, I think, that's really critical. And then just out of interest, there is an outlook on there. So at the bottom there is an outlook. Again, it's an abbreviation form, but you'll see there it says outlook until midnight tonight, stratus or stratocu cloud reforming later on the upslopes in zone C. So it's telling us that cloud is going to reform again, otherwise expect a similar forecast. The trick with these is to look at them regularly. And while we're not flying, unfortunately, while we're in lockdown, a good trick, a good tip is to print these out every day or watch the progression of these form 215s. Now, just to show you what a busier 215 looks like, that was from, I think this was Saturday. So you can see here a far busier chart, but you can break it down in the same way. So for example, immediately on the map here, I see a front. That map is valid for midday because it tells me that it's valid for midday. So I know that that's the time that that chart is valid for. It's telling me here that this area is moving north at 10 knots. And this area here is moving north at 10 knots. Remember that the marks on the front move in the direction that the front is moving in. So this one here is moving north at 10, this one here moving south. Okay, this front is moving south. This bit of the front here is moving in a northeasterly direction at 10 knots. Do a quick scan down the weather. See what it says. This is a huge area A up here. 40 kilometers nil, isolated hill fog. Yeah, that's because there's a bit of cloud somewhere. Let's have a scan down here. Area B, 15 kilometers nil weather generally, but occasional 7 kilometers in light rain and drizzle or rain. So some drizzle there. But there will be places where it's 3,000 meters in heavy rain. And there could even be some thunderstorms in the Far East until 11 o'clock. So that's in this area here. And isolated occasional sea coasts. Remember your abbreviations, you get them from going to the Met Office Aviation site, scroll down the bottom of the page, and it is down the bottom of the page somewhere. Let me get back to that to show you where it is. My apologies, I'm going to scroll down quickly. There it is, Aviation Abbreviations. And that again, look, click on C, COT at the coast. So we know that that was occasional sea coasts in the west, 2,500 meters in mist and drizzle, and occasional 200 meters in fog on coasts, and occasional hill fog. So not a great area to fly. So again, by scanning down these columns, we can get a quick feel as to what the weather is like to be. And again, I'm just looking at those freezing levels there, majority 6,000 to 8,000 feet. In area A, 4,000 to 6,000 feet in the far north. Immediately, I've got this picture as to what the weather is likely to do. So the trick with 215 is to print it out regularly. Now, 214, our winds, let me just expand that for you. There we go. So 214, I've gone over time a little bit here, but my apologies. I wanted to explain this to you and get this through. I'll deal with some questions in a moment as well. So this is form 214, and again, this is published 4 times a day, and you get it again from the Met Office Aviation website, and here it is. It's the UK spot wind forecast, and they're valid 03 to 09, 09 15, 15 21, 21 0300. But a real critical point here that I want to point out to you is this is the forecast for midday. So this is the forecast for midday. It's valid from 09 to 1500, but this is the winds at midday. So if you're going to fly at 9 o'clock or at 1500, it could be these winds are different because this chart is valid for midday only. Now, the winds are in boxes. So let's take this box here. That box is not representative of the winds through the whole area of that box. The winds predicted are only valid for the point that says. So here it says 55 north, 2.3 west. That is the point that those winds are valid for, not the whole box area, just that particular point. And we go upwards from 1,000 to 2,000, 5,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 18,000 feet, 24,000 feet. And then we have wind direction in degrees, the wind speed in knots, and the temperature in degrees as well. Now, it's important to realize that those winds are only valid for that point, because if you're doing a flight, let's say from, well, we'll take Hackney Green, which is my airfield here, and let's say we're going up to Carlisle here, then actually, yes, I have a spot wind very close by, but what I'm trying to do is to interpret from here to here. So you see here at 5,000 feet, the winds are predicted at 130 at 10 knots. That's at 52.3 north, 2.3 west, almost exactly where I am. So 130 degrees at 10 knots. The winds here at 55 north, 2.3 west at 5,000 feet, are 110 at 20 knots. So I have to interpret between those two. It's important to realize that these winds are forecast winds for the time that it states, which is 1200 UTC on that date for that location. And these are, as far as I'm aware, these are just model produced winds. So this is just the model saying that's what the wind speed is going to be, that's what the wind direction is going to be, and that's what the temperature is going to be at that level. Something else that you can do on these as well is that if you've got a showery day, just look at your temperatures. Look at the temperature change from 1,000 feet to higher levels. if you have a significant change in temperature, and actually this is quite a good example down here at 50 north, 2.3 west, where we go from sort of a plus 13 at 2,000 feet, plus 1 at 10,000 feet, and we're going to minus 28 at 24,000 feet. A sharp fall in temperature indicates unstable air. Unstable air means cumulus cloud. Cumulus cloud means showers, or even cumulonimbus clouds. So a sharp fall in temperature indicates an increase of showers. A steady fall of temperature, and we've got here plus 9, plus 7, plus 7, plus 2, minus 2 here. A slower fall in temperature indicates more stable air. Now, stable air is associated with higher pressure, but it's also associated with a warm front, so beware of that. But if we get that sharp fall of temperature, that's indicative of an unstable air mass and the risk of showers as well. So it's really important when you're using these charts and you're planning your flight to be looking at what those winds are, but being aware that that is the point, just that point here, that forecast wind is valid for. Now, if you're flying into Europe, you're planning on flying into Europe, you can actually use forms 414 and forms 415. You see that this is the same as 214, 215, but it's expanded. And again, you get those from the Aviation Briefing Service. There they are, European low-level forecast chart, European spot wind chart. And they are exactly the same charts, but for an expanded area of Western Europe. So if you're going to go flying into France, into Germany, across to Scandinavia, these charts are as valid and as useful for flying in those areas. But the key to this is print them off regularly and get used to using them, because they are very handy charts. They're great to be able to prove that you assessed the weather before you went flying. And let's be honest, it makes you look a bit of a know-all as well if you can understand what's on there. But it is critical that you look at those, I think, before you go flying. Now, I talk about bases and tops of clouds. One of the questions that I get asked frequently is, how do you predict them? Well, there's a few stages. Firstly, let's look at the air masses, see what cloud bases and tops are associated with each air mass. That gives us a starting point for our forecast. We look at 215 if we're going to go flying today. That firms up our idea for bases and tops. But we also look at these magical things called SKU-Ts, which you hear me bang on about all the time. SKU-Ts are diagrams of temperature against height, and we plot temperature and dew point against height, and the patterns that these SKU-T diagrams make give us a prediction for cloud bases and cloud tops. And those of you, many of you have already done this, but I've got my Pilot's Guide to SKU-Ts online course, which you can take now, which gives you all the information you need to be able to predict your bases and tops 7 days in advance. Not only that, it predicts the winds at all levels as well. And it's going to be way better than any app, because you're doing the predictions yourself. They're pretty easy to understand once they've been explained to you, and you can make those predictions and make far better use of planning ahead for your flying. So you can get that from the Weather School site now, which is weatherschool.co.uk. Okay, hopefully that's been useful for you. I don't want to witter on and steal all your evening. So let me have a look at any questions. I noticed that there was a few that were coming in. Let me just run down here first of all. What does the H mean on the chart? Well, the H means high pressure. So that's what an H means. An L, and that was on here. So the H that's just in there is high pressure. L would mean low pressure. What else have we got? Let me have a look down here. Windy. Well, Wind is just another app. So Wind is great in the way that it presents it. And I'm not kind of disparaging all apps here by any means. I'm just making you aware that you've got to be mega careful when you use them. Take this in the right way. I think that we have all, and this includes me, we've all become incredibly lazy because of this stuff. So, you know, we have a quick look. Oh, it's easier just to look at the app and see what the weather's going to do rather than look at anything else. Yes, that's the trap that we all fall into. But the apps are only the same. Really, what apps are for is to tell Mrs. Miggins if she can hang out the washing. No forecasting service would say to you, oh, you should go flying on what we say on our app. Yes, it may be presented in that way, but no forecast service would tell you that. So you just have to be mega careful. That's why looking at 215 and using Scooties are a much better option, and coming along to weather school as well. So yeah, windy, it's a good app. It's a good app. But just use it with caution. What else did I have down here? Moderate turbulence and severe turbulence definitions. I see that Artem, you've put an answer to that. Yeah. We as meteorologists have slightly different definitions, but they are relatively loose, I have to say. When it comes to forecasting turbulence, again, models are not good. Meteorologists are probably slightly better, but only because what we're doing is we're looking at the amount of instability, we're looking at vertical movements, and we're trying to make predictions based on that. But always treat turbulence predictions with caution. If they're in the forecast, they've been put in there for a reason, not just because it pads it out. They're in there because turbulence is expected. Yeah, Chris, of course, you did the Scooty course, and you say not difficult to predict cloud bases if you've done the Scooty. Yeah, so Scooty and the tephogram are the same thing. So Scooty, tephogram, essentially the same chart. Does 070 to 090 imply temperature rising above 090? It's the freezing level is between 7,000 and 8,000 generally. And what you would expect there is that there's a variation in the area, but it's probably colder to the north than it is to the south. Doesn't always work like that, but most of the time. Yeah, I read on the principle, if it takes yonks to read the 215, stay in the clubhouse. That's a great one, Colin. Actually, you're probably not far wrong there, are you? The only problem is that if you're in one of these areas and it's tucked in down the bottom or something that is glorious, you might miss it, because sometimes it could just be one area that shines through. Love it. What was the one about CBs? Could have a QNIM embedded within the stratus. I've missed the thread on that. Not quite sure what that was referring to. Okay, let's just have a look. On the chart, how do you interpret whether the ice bars should go clockwise or anti-clockwise winds using the high and the low? Okay, simple one with that, Fahim, is Northern Hemisphere. Winds always rotate in an anti-clockwise. No, they don't. Winds always rotate in a clockwise direction around high pressure. You see, I have to think of it as well. So they always rotate in a clockwise direction around high pressure. Around low pressure, they will always rotate in an anti-clockwise direction. This is in the Northern Hemisphere. So it will always be that way around high pressure. It will always be that way around low pressure. One of the tips you can do, and I was just looking for my little drawing tool on here, which appears to have disappeared. So my apologies for that. But what you can do is draw on little arrowheads. So draw on little arrows, kind of just pointing in this direction. So pointing from east to west to show you that you've got an easterly wind there. It enables you to visualize the chart. And again, those who've been to weather school will back up what I'm saying here. I spend quite a lot of time on these charts because these charts just open the world to you. Fabio asks, Nick says, does 25 kilometer nil vis refer only to vis only? What does nil refer to? The nil refers to weather. So 20 kilometers and nil weather, because it says there, look, surface vis and WX. So that's 25 kilometers and nil weather. Are those temperatures from 214 taken from a sounding like on the Scooties? Yes, they are. Similar sort of thing to that. Chris says similar forms for France, Germany. Yeah. Where does Garmet sit in all this now? Garmet is these new forecasts that they've come up with that are on the regional forecasts. There they are. I have to say that has replaced AirMet. So I've got to be careful what I say here. I am not overly impressed. It's been promoted as an improvement in service. A personal opinion, I don't think it is. It's a meteorologist who's prepared it. It's great that a meteorologist has done it, that a human meteorologist has done it. I don't think as a community we shouted loud enough about the withdrawal of AirMet, because as far as I see, these areas are less than we used to get. And to me, it's become a lower grade service because of that, but it's still useful information. That's my personal opinion. Get used to using it because that's what we've got. And if we don't use it, I fear that could be withdrawn as well. There's no basis for that apart from doing the maths in my own head and thinking, yeah, that could be under pressure. So please use it. It's there. It's produced for us. Let's use it. Millibar hectopascal terms, where there's low pressure become a high. Good one, Joel. That's the most common asked question at weather school. It's relative to the pressure that surrounds. So you can have high pressure at 990 millibars if the pressure around it is lower. And likewise, you can have low pressure at 1050 millibars if the pressure around it is higher. Again, we cover that on weather school. Let's have a look. What are garmets used for GA or commercial or both? Don't confuse garmet, which is this, with grammet. So a grammet is a pictorial representation in 3D purely produced from model data of two locations and the flight path along those locations. That's a grammet. But remember, it is pure model data, nothing else. And you can get you can get a working example absolutely at the Met Office. The low altitude 214 times 30%. This is Roger has sent me this. Would be ground wind, is that right? Low altitude. Yeah, so I'd take the 2,000 feet generally. Well, actually, the 3,000 foot wind, 130, 10 knots, and it would roughly be at the surface. I'd work on 30 to 50% surface wind. Treat that very cautiously. Best thing to do, METARs and TAFs. Look at your TAFs for the forecast winds. They're always going to outdo anything else. Yeah, Tom, that's my opinion on garmet as well. Again, I think as a community, we took our eye off the ball a little bit and we didn't shout loud enough about it. But I think that if we now start to get our thoughts known, that actually it's not quite as useful as we'd like it to be, and certainly not as useful as the old airmets were. Who knows? Perhaps changes could be made. We will wait and see. Yeah, all right, Chris. Anybody else got any questions? Simon, do you rate the weather info in SkyDeem? Again, it's useful information. It's overlaid. So yeah, absolutely, it's useful data. Look, the more the merrier, I think, so long as we know the sources that it's coming from. So SkyDeem is a great app, and more information the better. But you would not decide to go or not go based on weather information delivered in SkyDemon unless you're looking at something like TAFs. Because I do believe, and I may be wrong here, so it needs checking, but I do believe that the data that's overlaid there, the model data, the forecast winds, is coming from the GFS. So it's just model data. So I certainly wouldn't be deciding it for a yay or nay decision, but it's useful for having a look at when we've looked at these charts and taken our own decisions. Any other questions? Let me just look at my YouTube feed as well. What's your opinion of websites such as Meteo Blue? Steve, again, Meteo Blue is just another site. You know, there are loads of them. What we mustn't do is, let me get a bit more light in the situation. There we go. What we mustn't do is fall for a site because it looks good. Okay, there's this thing about sites looking sexy, so therefore they must be good. That doesn't always follow. I'm not saying that's a case of Meteo Blue, but it's just a case of being very, very careful of what we're looking at and not being drawn into various different sites because of what they look like. Use this rule of thumb. If you're looking at more than 3 weather sites, you're looking for the weather that you want to see. Okay, you can look around lots of different sites and you will eventually get the forecast that you want to see. Did I miss something there? Somebody said fake Parkinson, all of it, and then something about passing an exam. GFS is global forecast system, I think. Yeah, absolutely it is. Question around SKU-T, so may not be appropriate. How do we ID fog in a SKU-T? Paddy, look at the bottom layers of the SKU-T. If it's looking like Stratus, I can't remember if you've taken the SKU-T online course, but I cover this. The bottom layers, if it looks like Stratus, that can be fog as well. So it's a case of looking at the bottom layers of the SKU-T, the pattern that makes tells us whether fog is likely. Craig says about talking about surface pressure charts. Yeah, I mentioned those briefly, Craig. This is the working surface pressure chart. This tells you everything that you need to know. I spend about 45 minutes at weather school talking about this. So Craig, get yourself along to weather school and I can explain it to you. Don't have time for that now, I'm afraid. If you have time, would you run through a hypothetical process for a trip with regards to weather briefing? I'm going to do that on a future webinar, I think, Craig. I did do one last week, but I will look at doing that as another future webinar, if you would all find that useful. Thanks, Andy. Yep, SCUT course is excellent. Just for those of you, so that you know, if you go to weatherschool.co.uk, and what you do is you come down to aviation, click on a pilot's guide to SCUTs, and it gives you everything that you need to know there. You get lifetime access to it, so you can keep referring back to it. I've included a book on there as well that I've written on SCUT, so that's free for you as well. That's all there. It's so useful, particularly at the moment when we're sort of gathering our weather knowledge ready to be flying again. Now, something I wanted to ask you, a couple of things. First up is if you can make a donation to the Big Issue Foundation, I would really appreciate it. That's what I've done this webinar in aid of. It's completely free. I know times are difficult for everybody at the moment, so please don't feel under pressure, but it would be fantastic if you can. And to do that, you just go to that website, make a donation, whatever you can. It's because the Big Issue sellers aren't able to sell the magazines on the streets anymore, because of lockdown. So if you can donate whatever you can, that would be superb. The last webinar raised over £1,000 from pilots. So thank you so much if you've donated already. Absolutely superb. If you have and you think it's worth donating again because of what I've done tonight, that would be fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, I've got to say, to give a shout out to John Hunt, who's in the group. Yeah, I'm doing this course because of one of his YouTube videos. Yeah, John's a good mate, and John is definitely one of the good guys, and I've learned so much from his videos. And I know that at 8 o'clock, John's doing an Instagram questions and answer session. So go and have a search for the Flying Reporter, I think it is. If John's still on, I'm sure he'll give you the correct @ address. But I think if you go and have a look at the Flying Reporter on Instagram, John's doing a Q&A on there at 8 o'clock, which is why I want to get done. And finally, just a quick question for you. I have been asked by a few of you about doing Aviation Weather School, the full Aviation Weather School, as a webinar course. Now, I'd spread it over 2 weeks, so it'd be on 2 consecutive Saturday mornings for 3 hours. Many of you have said to me, you can't get to weather school physically. So I'm looking at doing this as a live webinar course. Do you think this would be useful for you? If you can let me know, that would be superb. Now, the price will be the same as the classroom-based course. It'll take 6 hours in total, but we'll have regular breaks, and it will be spread over 2 periods. I've got lots of people asking me if I can do this, because the classroom-based courses are not possible at the moment, and we don't know how long that would be. So we would do it online. It's all exactly the same information. It's exactly the same access that you would have to me, exactly the same data. So let me know if you think that would be useful, and you can contact me. You can email me on the address that I sent out to you earlier on. So do it at simon@weatherweb.net, which I'll type in there for you now. So let me know, or you can use the contact us form there, and you can let us know. So if you can let me know if you think that would be useful, that would be superb, and we'll run it over 2 consecutive Saturday weekends. Yeah, you could crack jokes with me, Tom, because I can see you, and we can unmute you if you think you've got something particularly funny to say. Yeah, it is good fun though, isn't it, on the classroom-based course? You're quite right. You're quite right, Tom. Part of doing weather school is that social interaction, but at least this way, people who can't attend could take part. So please let me know. I've got about 60 or 70 people want to do it already, so please just let me know, and I can get this arranged. Okay, are there any other questions? Yeah, what about the cake? We'll have to do virtual tea breaks, won't we? I'll send you a voucher for the cake, Mike. How about that? Okay. Yeah, how do we get lunch with online? I'll sit here and have lunch with it. How do we get the weekend text? Craig asks. Okay, Craig, what you need to do is to send a blank email to this address, just so you all know. I will type it into you. This is where I send a free forecast out on a Thursday or a Friday. It's in text format, and it also announces course dates and things on there first. Okay. And that's where you get the information first, so you can sign up there. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that's about it. Have we got any other questions coming through asking about the cake and the waistline? Yeah, brilliant. Love it, love it. As you know, weather school, those of you being weather school is always a good day. We have some fun. And I get across, hopefully, my enthusiasm for weather and what I think you need to know. Okay, the cloud book you referred to earlier, is it the Pocket Weather Forecaster? Indeed it is, Kevin. It is that one. Yeah, and you can also go to the Weather School shop. My DVD's on there as well. So both of those are available for you. And if you've got any other ideas for these sort of free webinars and topics you'd like to cover, again, get in touch. Email me. You can send them through the Weather School site, do whatever you like, get the message over to me, and let's see if we can do more of them. Okay, and I think that is just about it. As I say, John Hunt's just about to start his question and answer session on Instagram, so we'll head over there now, and John can do a bit of work for a change. Thanks so much. Great to see you all. Please do stay healthy and safe. And please, please, please do make your donations now into the Big Issue Foundation via that Just Giving page. That would be absolutely superb of you. Okay, and on that, I will sign off. It's been my pleasure, Lee. Lee says on YouTube, thanks for giving up your evening to provide this insight without costs and great tips. Fantastic. Yeah, great to see you all. Listen, take care, stay healthy. Difficult times for all of us, but we will be flying again soon. And when you come up to Halfpenny Green, I'll let you buy me a coffee, perhaps even a piece of cake. Mind you, probably not. I'll have a medical to get through by then. Okay, listen, thanks again for watching. Keep the sun shining. Bye for now, everybody. Stay safe.